This is a tutorial on how to make chocolate-covered Oreos. At the end is a frequently asked questions section which addresses common questions, issues, and provides some alternatives. But if you still have questions, just leave them in the comments section. First, we'll go through the list of supplies needed, then the step-by-step instructions, and finally the frequently asked questions section. So feel free to jump around as needed. This is a list of supplies you will need. Amazon affiliate links to all products are listed in the description. This assumes you're making 12 Oreos. You will need 4 main items: 1 family-sized box of original stuffed Oreos, 2 12-ounce bags of candy melts, 12 treat sticks 6 inches long. You will also need an Oreo mold. This is not required. However, if you don't use one, you won't get the perfect edges and silky look. To melt the candy, you can either use a melting pot, microwave, or stovetop. If using a microwave, you can use a microwave-safe cup, bottle, bowl, or decorating bag. For decorating, you will need oil-based food coloring. Note that you cannot use regular food coloring as it will damage the candy. You will also need paintbrushes as well as your choice of any other decorating items. Time to make them. Step 1. Melt the candy melts using your preferred method. If you're using the microwave as I did, place candy in a microwave-safe container or decorating bag and microwave at 50% power or defrost setting for 1 minute. Then stir or knead the bag. Return to the microwave and heat at 30-second intervals, stirring or kneading in between, until the candy is mostly melted. Then leave it in the microwave for another 30 to 60 seconds before removing. If you're using a melting pot, place your candy in the pot and turn the setting to the highest, which is melt. Stir occasionally to distribute the heat. Once the candy is mostly melted, then switch to the warm setting, which is in the middle, and stir. Step 2. Pour the melted candy into the mold using enough to cover the bottom of each round slot. Step 3. Split Oreo and place half of the Oreo in the mold and press down to ensure that the sides get completely covered. But be careful not to push too much or it will show on the other side. Step 4. Pour additional melted candy. Step 5. Add treat stick to mold. Step 6. Pour additional melted candy. Step 7. Add the other Oreo half to the mold and press down. Step 8. Pour additional melted candy onto the Oreo, making sure to cover the tops and the sides. Step 9. Shake the molds from side to side and tap slightly on the surface to level the candy. And add more candy as needed. Use a toothpick to get rid of any air bubbles. Step 10. Place the mold in the freezer for about 10 to 15 minutes to harden. Step 11. Remove the Oreos from the mold. You can either turn the mold upside down and press down at the center of the back of each slot, or just push up on each one. Step 12. Time to decorate them, or you can enjoy as is. What are candy melts? Candy melts are a colored, flavored confectionery ingredient that's used for baking and decorating. The main ingredients are sugar, which adds sweetness, and oil, which helps the candy break down when heated. They're meant to be melted and used as a candy coating for all kinds of treats. Are candy melts chocolate? No. They look, taste, and have similar texture but are quite different. The main difference is that candy melts use vegetable oils in place of cocoa butter. These oils eliminate the need for tempering. Tempering is a process which involves precise heating and cooling. Since candy melts don't require tempering, they are much easier to work with. Also, unlike chocolate, candy melts will hold their shape at room temperature, so you don't have to worry about your candy melting if left out. How long do chocolate-covered Oreos last? They need to be stored in an airtight container. If the container is left at room temperature, they will last for a few weeks, possibly up to a month. If stored in the fridge, they will last for about a month. But you should avoid this method if you're using real chocolate, as refrigeration can alter its appearance. If stored in the freezer, they will last for a few months. To thaw, simply let them warm to room temperature on the counter. How much candy melt do I need? This depends on the type of mold used, the thickness of the Oreo, and the amount of candy poured into the mold. But on average, if using a mold, about 1.5 to 2 ounces of candy melt is needed per Oreo, or 18 to 24 ounces of candy melt per dozen Oreos. If not using a mold, it's about half to 1 ounce per Oreo, or 6 to 12 ounces for a dozen Oreos. Which Oreos work best? This can be a personal preference, but for most, the original ones seem to work best, as you end up with a good balance between cookie and chocolate. The double stuffed may work, but you have to be careful not to push it too far down and still cover as much as you can at the top. The thin ones result in a flavor imbalance since there is way more chocolate than cookie. What do I do if candy loses its consistency? If you need to smooth out your candy for easy dripping or drizzling, you can add Wilton's Easy Thin. Or if you don't have, you can add 1.5 teaspoons of solid vegetable shortening per 8 ounces of candy. Remember to never add liquids such as milk or water, as these can cause your candy to seize, making them unusable. Why is my candy seizing? This could be due to the temperature, humidity, or the overall freshness of the candy. Can I fix burnt or seized candy? Not really. You can fix slightly overheated candy. However, once the candy is burned, it can no longer be saved, as it will most likely taste burnt. You can, however, try to add it to another recipe which requires moisture. What are the options for melting candy melts? 1. The microwave. This is the quickest method and best for small batches of candy. 2. The melting pot. This is best for dipping cake pops or pretzels. 3. The double boiler. This is best used for larger batches of candy. How do I use the double boiler method? The double boiler method uses steam to melt your candy and is the better option when needing to melt large amounts. To melt using a double boiler, fill a small pot with about 1 inch of water. Then place a large heat-safe bowl on the pot and place the pot on low heat. Next, add your candy melts to the bowl and stir continuously to help distribute heat. The steam from the boiling water will help melt your candy. If too much steam is being produced, turn down the heat a bit, as water and steam can cause your candy to seize, which would make them unusable. Once almost completely melted, remove the bowl from the heat and continue stirring until nice and smooth. Do I have to have a mold? No, unless you absolutely want the perfect edges and smooth silky finish. To do them without a mold, dip the Oreos or pour the melted candy over them, then place on wax paper to harden. Can I use a silicone mold? Yes, silicone molds can be used. However, plastic molds tend to be a bit easier to use as you can move them around without worrying about it bending and spilling. It can also be easier to pop the Oreos out of them. Can I add sticks without the stick mold? Yes, you can insert the stick after the chocolate has hardened by heating the pointed end of a kitchen thermometer or other similar object and making a hole in the bottom for the stick. What else can I use to decorate them? You can use chocolate toppers, fondant or gum paste toppers, or icing, although the icing takes a bit longer to dry. Tip number 1. If you have any leftover candy, you can let it harden and use it again later on. Just make sure your candy is free of any crumbs before storing. Tip number 2. If you're making a lot at one time, try to work in batches. A helpful tool is a warming tray or a heating pad, which will help keep the chocolate soft. Tip number 3. If you use silicone molds, put them on a baking sheet for easy handling and try to fill them about 3/4 of the way since these molds tend to be a bit deeper. That's all. Leave any other questions in the comment section. And if you enjoy these types of videos, please remember to subscribe.